Well, heavy decision weighing on President Trump as he finalizes his response to the suspected chemical attack in Syria. This as Russia's ambassador to the UN voicing fears of a U.S.-Russia strife amid Trump's earlier threat to use new and smart missiles, leaving some actually to wonder if we're on the cusp of a major, even bigger conflict. Joining me now, Rebecca Grant, former official in the office of the Secretary of the Air Force, and Robert Charles, former Assistant Secretary of State to Colin Powell. Robert, let me start with you on this. It feels like the pendulum has swung back and forth with respect to conventional wisdom. First, it was hit him hard, going along with the President Trump's tweet. And it feels since then it's been tempered somewhat. But what would the right retaliation be?
I think the real question is what is proportionate to a chemical weapon attack? And what we have to do is establish credible deterrence. There's no question about it. My own guess, given that we've got 2 Arleigh Burke destroyers over there with 56 cruise missiles each, and we probably have somewhere in the vicinity an Ohio-class submarine with 156 cruise missiles, that this will be a substantial signal, and it will be clear to Syria. It may suck all the oxygen out of that environment for a little while. It'll clearly indicate to Assad that there is not to be another chemical attack. There have been 6 of them since 2013. That is 6 too many. And I think at this point in time, what we need to do is clearly show Russia, Iran, and Assad that whatever else the outcome in Syria looks like, it does not involve any more chemical weapons. It's a global signal.
Of course, Rebecca, Assad's father, known for killing his own people in a much more indiscriminate manner even than this. So they know it's a winning formula despite all the global outrage. And the irony here, the sad irony, is that it feels like they had so much momentum on their side. People are even wondering, why would he have done this in the first place?
Well, Assad does this when he gets into a corner tactically. There's no reason for this. It's complete brutality. But sadly, it worked. The chemical attack happened on a Saturday night. The last rebel holdout has surrendered, and Russian forces have escorted Syrians into that city. So if we have a strike, I agree with Robert, this is also a message to Putin. You cannot use the Russian military to shield and condone this kind of behavior. There will be a response from the West.
You know, I want to play a sound, some sound here from Heather Nauer, because there was some confusion on whether or not even a chemical attack had occurred, and some question if it did occur, who did it. Let's take a listen.
It is the assessment of the U.S. government, the British government, the French government. I cannot speak on their behalf, but we've all been having conversations and sharing information, intelligence included, and we can say that the Syrian government was behind this attack. We believe we know who is responsible for this. We believe we know that chemical weapon was used.
You know, Robert, of course, Russia's saying, yeah, well, there was a chemical weapon, but it was all staged by the British.
Yeah, the Russians say a lot of things that are nonsense. You know, the irony, the real irony out of all this, and, you know, Putin ought to think about it, and Assad, to the extent he thinks about anything, ought to think about it, and the Iranians ought to think about it, is that this act probably guarantees the United States will stay engaged in Syria for an extended period and has fundamentally unified the West. Indeed, it has probably unified, by the time we're done here, a number of Arab countries around the United States and allied leadership. So at the end of the day, what will happen here is a proportionate response. It will probably also include diplomacy, and at the end of the day, there'll be greater unity in the West and with the Arab world, and I think it'll be against chemical weapons and Assad.
Right. Of course. What's the right response in terms of it's going to be sort of reciprocal here, Rebecca? Because in hindsight, a lot of people say, well, that first salvo that we made into Syria, a lot of folks are looking at it in hindsight as more cynically. You know, maybe it was an empty runway. Some of these planes weren't operational. How much damage should we level on Syria if we do strike them militarily?
Depriving Syria of its air force would enhance regional stability. So let's go ahead and attack the military targets and do it at night. Let's take out their jets. Let's take out their helicopters. That would help regional stability. And don't forget, Charles, we are at war there. Central Command reported 41 airstrikes this week alone already.
So a quick note, Charles, by the way. There are 245 Air Force fighters in Syria. If we hit half of those with their runways, we do serious damage.
Well, let's do it. Thank you both very much now.